Hello and welcome to 5 Year Club video number 214. This will be the fifth and final story of book number 5 in the Japanese Family Storehouse, which is a book about money written 333 years ago by a famous Japanese man named Ihara Saikaku, translated in 1959 by, I believe, a British man named G.W. Sargent. And this is the first edition of the book. I don't believe it had any other edition in the first edition. So kind of an obscure text, but I like reading out of it because it's got funny Japanese turns of phrase, and we can see a lot of, the modern principles of personal finance that I talk about mentioned by this guy in feudal Japan in an era where there were still samurai and not much technology, certainly no smartphones. All right, let's make it happen. The story is A Handful of Silver at Dawn. Checking affinities in an almanac reveals amazing coincidences and disconcerting differences. But in modern marriages, neither harmony of elements nor even good looks enter into the question. Everyone alike is in favor of girls who bring the element of gold with them. Accordingly, the matchmaker of our day first inquires into the marriage portion, and only then asks whether the lady has any physical deformity. The customs of ancient times are gone. With the growth of greed, even men's desires have changed, and the stream of love has lost itself in the shallows. By the upper reaches of the Wake, where its waters flow, as human love has flowed, from deep pools into shallow rapids, in Sarayama village in the district of Kume, there lived a man who had risen slowly and surely from a humble marriage to become a millionaire of unfathomable wealth, acknowledged in Mimasaki province to be second only to the celebrated Zogo. His name was Yorozuya. He had amassed mountains of silver in a single lifetime, but though their captive spirits moaned the whole night long, he suffered the sound to disturb no poor man's rest. For Yorozuya disdained all ostentation. The gables of his house rose no higher than those of his neighbors, and even on New Year's Day for 40 years, he had made his social calls wearing an overskirt of hemp which had been tailored for him at the time of his marriage. Regardless of current fashions in design or color, spring after spring he wore gowns printed with the same pattern of lemon-colored spots, bearing the same black-ringed crests. And, for his other clothes, no shade of maple or wisteria disturbed their everlasting blue. The wealthy and distinguished Zogo household, with its array of 9 storehouses, was truly an ornament to the province. Yorozuya, on the other hand, did all he could to conceal the fact that he was rich. He had an only son called Kichitaro, and when he caught him, at the age of 13, wiping his nose with a piece of fine kosugi paper, he disinherited him. He sent him to his aunt's house in Oboshi in Harima, and told him to learn better habits by watching a wealthy merchant called Nabaya. After thus disposing of his own boy, he next adopted his young sister's only son. Up to the age of 25 or 6, he made him work like any of the other clerks, but when he observed that his frugality was such that he even collected worn-out straw sandals and sent them to his old home as manure for the melons, he took a personal liking to the young man and made him his heir. After surrendering the management of the business to him, he began inquiries for a suitable daughter-in-law. His wishes in the matter were rather out of the ordinary. "I should like my son to have the most violently jealous wife obtainable," he said. The world is broad. A girl was found to suit his taste, and the marriage ceremony was concluded. The old couple now went into retirement, handing over everything they possessed to the young man. The heir, feeling more at ease now that he had money of his own, immediately took a little for his private use and procured himself a concubine. He had in mind a further project for hiring boy actors, but at that his wife could contain her jealousy no longer, and, as had been foreseen, lifted cries of reproach which shook the mountains. Having no desire to become the focus of local gossip, he abandoned his plans for a gay life and contented himself with sake after supper and early nights. Since the master never left the premises, everyone else had to stay at home, the clerks sitting in the light of the lamp, running through the account books to amuse themselves, the apprentice boys practicing elementary additions and subtractions on the abacus, all admirable pursuits calculated to further the interests of the firm. At first, people had laughed at the wife's violent jealousy, but now everyone thought again. In general, when parents are too lenient towards their sons, it is the beginning of trouble for the house. Even if the father treats them strictly, the mother frequently takes their side, finding them means of evasion, and they acquire the habit of spending more money than they can afford on idle pastimes. Harshness is for the good of a boy. Soft-heartedness will ruin him. All right, and we have Yorozuya's wife does some sightseeing. We got a little graphic there that's way too blurry to see. Maybe I can take a picture of it. Sorry about that. Yeah, so this is one of those stories where it's kind of sexist. It's like, yep, dad's always like this, mom's always like this. We know what's going on. After the death of Yorozuya and his wife, their daughter-in-law made a pilgrimage to Ice, and on her return did some sightseeing in Kyoto and Osaka. Now, this is interesting, because it said that Yorozuya's wife died, but it says the daughter-in-law did some sightseeing in the story, but the caption for the for that picture said it was Yorozuya's wife doing some sightseeing. Anyway, who knows? And on her return did some sightseeing in Kyoto and Osaka. Observing the elegant attire of the people, she remodeled her own dress in imitation. Her heart, too, suffered a change. To show jealousy, she now learned, was not fashionable. As she became more moderate in this respect, her husband, realizing that this was his opportunity, decided to enjoy himself. Feigning an illness and claiming that the local air was not good for his recovery, he went up to the home provinces and spent his whole time practicing one or the other of the arts of love with courtesans or actors. So freely did he scatter money every day that his love affairs soon tore a gaping hole in his finances. And if Koban had been as easily come by as sewing needles, he would never have made ends meet. The gold and silver in his house, so long accustomed to lying undisturbed, took an active disliking to him, and the god of luck in his strong room moved his quarters elsewhere. I gotta say, in this book, generally, there's a theme of the sons of rich people wasting all of the money on random sex in the city. So it's like, wow, that was a thing in feudal Japan? I didn't know. Okay, yep. And the god of luck in his strong room moved his quarters elsewhere. At length, Yorozuya awoke from his dream, astonished at what had happened. Changing his trade to more flexible lines, he enlarged the business premises and added banking and money changing to his activities. As people's deposits poured in, he invested them here, there, and everywhere, aiming to recover his position by the end of the year. What passes for solid wealth is often no more than paper and paste, and the procession of paper lanterns on this New Year's Eve, borne by clients coming to draw their deposits, filled Yorozuya with terror. If I can only survive tonight's business, from tomorrow I shall be out of danger, he thought. When the last outgoing zeni had been noted down, and he had balanced his books, the bells were already striking the hour before dawn. A man was selling New Year prints of Ibisu in the street, but Yorozuya had not a copper left to buy one. All the same, for appearance's sake, he called the man over. Sorry, he said, sending him away again. I wanted a picture of Ibisu without his hat. Not long after this, there was a knock at the door, and a merchant called Hiogoya entered and handed him a leather bag. Here are the 1,500 gold koban which I wish to deposit for next year, said the merchant, producing the money. And in the interest I received from you last night, he continued, producing some more money, were these 3 monmei 5 fun of bad silver coins. The young Yorozuya had nothing left with which to change them. The truth was out. Okay, that took a weird turn, especially at the Okay, so I think what happened was, when it reads, at length Yorozuya awoke from his dream, I don't think that was a literal dream. I think that was him realizing that he's going broke because he's sleeping with all these people and spending all this money in the city, or in the home provinces, as you might call it. So then he goes to salvage his business, and he can't quite make it happen. at the end. So the young Yorozuya had nothing left with which to change them. The truth was out. So, yeah. Interesting story, though, that the father picks a particularly jealous wife as a means of trying to preserve the family wealth. Not something I would have thought of. But that is it for this story. Story number 5 and book number 5, A Handful of Silver at Dawn, which I guess is what he needed if he was going to make ends meet and he didn't have it. And we will be on to book 6 next, but not tonight. That finishes, though, video number 214 of the 5-Year Club. Thank you for joining me. Have a fabulous evening.